This video is to break down the new announcement by the UK government. Now, the new Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Andy Burnham, made some announcements a few weeks ago when he was Prime Minister, when he became Prime Minister. However, this emphasis is on the £2 single bus fare. So I'm going to just break it down so that you understand it better and how it affects you. First of all, to understand the British bus system, before it was controlled and owned by the government mostly, but in 1985 the government then now made an act that transferred every ownership to private control. So most of the buses in UK were controlled by private entities. They get the buses, they determine the routes, they control the pricing. The only exception was London, obviously because of its peculiarity, and I think Edinburgh and Nottingham. So however, that's how it has been. Then over time there was an act around 2017 or thereabout, I can't remember then, but however last year 2025 there was a bus service act which now put some laxity to the deregulation. So meaning that the public council, the public council and government can also operate the buses. Now the thing about it now is that the first person that did it, apart from London, the person that took more control of this was Andy Burnham. He also did it in Greater Manchester when he was a mayor, and by doing so, what he was able to do is that because he took much of the control away from private individual, he was able to set the price, a single bus fare at £2 and cap it at £5. Now let me just explain the way it is. Usually if you look at the bus, there's buying the bus, there's the driver, there's the routes, there's managing different things. Usually before, most of the buses, when it was privatized, now the buses control everything. But what Andy Burnham did after the act last year, what he did in Manchester was that he now owned the system, meaning he franchised it. So the council, which is the public, when it was mayor of Greater Manchester, what they would do is that they will control the routes, they will control the timing, they will control the payments. The only thing the private will control is just managing of the buses and paying the staff. So what they do is that even the routes, is the government that determines the route. So what happens is that the government controls everything and they bid it out, meaning different companies will bid to for the government to assign them routes, and when the government assigns them routes, they then plan the route, and they get like a fixed fee from the government. When they bid, they possibly say how much it takes to apply a particular route, you get maintaining the bus. So that is how much the government will pay them. But however, because the government also obviously because of more political relevance, every government will want to try as much as possible to do things that will make the life of an average British person better. So what they did is that, okay, they try to cap, okay, we are not going to make a single fare more than £2 and a day pass more than £5. Now from a private perspective, it can go higher, because as long as they are concerned, they will apply areas where they will get the routes, where there are more people applying the routes. If there's not a lot of population in a particular place, they might reduce the hours that they apply a particular route. So, but the problem with government controlling is that if you reduce the price, will it be enough to cover the costs? So, and that is what is now going to happen as from next year January. Obviously, it has happened in London, where they are capping the price to a single fare to £2, because usually across England it's usually more than £2. It's like £2.50, £2.60, in some places £3 for a single fare. Then for a ticket that you can buy and use all through the day, it can be about £6.80, £7, £5, depending on the location. So practically the only way the Prime Minister can make this possible is by public ownership, meaning since he announced that by January 1st, every city in UK will be able to every city in UK will follow the price cap of £2. What it means is that the only way can be possible is, and what it's going to do is that every city will now control the bus. They control the routes, they will control the timing, they will control the pricing. Then you, even when you pay directly to the government. The bus will be kind of unified. What the private people will now do, private companies will now do, is just maintenance of the bus and hiring drivers, because most of the buses belong to private operators anyway. So yes, so that's how it's going to work. But the problem a lot of people talk about when it comes to this is that how will you fund it? Because if you look at business generally, what a lot of businesses will do is that if there's more demand or supply, most businesses will set price that is realistic, that can cover their cost, and they will also make profits. But however, the question is that if you are capping the price and the private companies are still involved, now if you are not making enough profit and you are paying the government and you are paying private companies, how will you make up for the extra losses? And now that leads to another question. What should be controlled, or how should some agencies run, or how should what we use every day in government work? Should we just stick to government controlling it, or should we privatize it? Now, I feel that the best is to privatize things that are of less control, that can be done without government involvement. If there is a particular form of business or operations that requires government involvement, privatizing will be a bit difficult. Let me give you a typical instance. Say network. Somebody can own a network company in the UK or own a bank without necessarily government involvement. The only thing you need to do is just to make sure you've covered the regulations, you meet all what you need to meet. You can open any branch as much as possible. You can decide what you want to do without government involvement, as long as you meet the requirements. But however, for buses, it can be a bit difficult. It's not a business anybody can just enter, because, for instance, where will you park your buses? You need license for depots. So even for you to even run the buses, you still need permissions from the government. So it's difficult to privatize. Now, in the part of last year, I could remember even in London, it was said that the money that was being made from the capping was actually less than the overall cost from what they made from the bus. So meaning it was said that I think they were paying the amount that was needed to maintain and pay the bus operators were close to £2 billion. But however, it was about £1 million they were able to make from the buses. So the government had to do some form of subsidy by adding some extra fund to it. But the thing about it is that if government take full control of things like this, of the bus, say they take full control of, normally they are not in control of the routes, the timing and everything, and the payment. If they now take control of maintaining the buses and hiring the driver, it will cost them less, because the private companies that are bidding to manage the buses will also add their profit to it. So in a way, to cut the profit. But however, now there will now be more burden on the government. So another question will now arise: should we now question government efficiency in managing things like, okay, we need to own companies, or we know that, okay, government might not be able to manage this, let's give it to private companies, but however, it will come at a cost? Or the question should just be, government is not efficient enough, if you can't manage it, So those are the questions around it. But I feel that making it £2 is just more government control and subsidizing. But however, is the effect really maximal? Because obviously more than 50% of people take buses generally in the UK, in England basically, because Wales and Scotland have their own different planning. So it's with the effect will only be profound on very few people. And what can come is that maybe if you are maybe probably like a 20-30% difference in your bus fare, I don't know if that will make a significant change in people's life anyway, but it sends a signal that okay, the government cares and is doing something about it. Yes, so the £2 bus fare is more about the control that government is trying to do to make things better and balancing privatization. So basically, now that it's £2 cap, most likely some of your routes that was cut might probably increase. There might be more bus times. People that live in rural areas that only get buses maybe every hour, or bus stops at 9 p.m. can get more time for buses. But however, meaning the government will spend more, and that is the question: where would the money come from? But if it is managed well, I think the government can get the best out of it. So that is my explaining on the £2 bus fare. Let's see how it will work out from January 1st. And also, please, you can share your thoughts and opinion too. Thank you.